Hi, everybody. I came on a little early tonight because I always have things to do when I do software classes. I have to get my other computer set up and stuff. So give me a second here. Hopefully you'll start seeing me pretty soon. I just found myself, which is good. Just a second here. Okay, so it says I'm live. Other computer setup and stuff. So give me a second here. Whoops, just turned my tablet off. That was bad. Just a second here. Okay, so it says I'm live. All right. Okay, is anybody else in here yet? Are you finding me? I have to work with my tablet here, so give me a second. Hello, everyone. Are there other people here? Do some thumbs ups and things so I can see if people are coming in. Oh, I see a thumbs up. That's good. Can you see me? Well, you won't be able to see me. You can see my screen though, right? Just a second here. Okay. Ooh, there we go. Oh, Denise, Jackie, Jody. Hi, Jody. Looks like a few people have made it in. Oh, yay. Some thumbs ups. Thanks, guys. When I do so I had a little trouble. I got a new laptop for Christmas and it didn't work very well because it didn't have enough RAM memory. So I'm trying to do this with my tablet. I got a brand new tablet for my birthday, and this is going to work. But my problem was I was having a little trouble figuring out how I could see the comments on it. So you have to turn it like the long way, up and down, and then I can see a little teeny picture of my screen at the top, but then I can see the comments, and that's what I need. So hopefully this will work tonight. We'll know here shortly if this works. So how is everybody tonight? Are you excited to do some software? This is the class we were going to do in January when my dad ended up in the hospital. So, and the one good thing with me having an extra little time to get it ready, I did write you out some notes. I actually typed them up so you can read them. Otherwise, all I had was scribbles in a notebook. So I did type you out some nice notes for this. And then there's a little design that I used in the thing that we're just going to bring it in. But I had digitized this a long time ago. It's like a little stack of bobbins. And so I uploaded both of those things to the group. And you need to go to the group, and you have to go to the group page, to Sessions on Software, and at the very top is where all of the Dropbox files are. And the name of this one is Any Day Spent Sewing Patch. So I just uploaded it this afternoon. So the notes are in there, and then there's instructions on how to sew the patches, and then the little bobbin design is in there for you to download so you can make the project yourself. And if you want to follow along, you can download it and print it off so you can see the notes tonight too. Oh, we got 16 people. Wow. So what has everybody been doing today? Hi, Marcia. Hi, Jackie, Marilyn. Oh, Pat's here. Hi, Lisa. Are you driving home? Denise. Who else is here? All kinds of people. Jackie. A couple of Jackies. Oh, Kathy. Hi, Kathy. Kim. There's Lynn. So I've been working on Kimberbell today. The Kimberbell Club is coming up, and oh, you're making dog towels. I saw those online, Kim. Those are really cool. And I don't have a dog though to wash. My cats do not like to be bathed. So I've been working on the Kimberbell Club. It's in March, and so it takes a little while to get everything ready. Oh, hi, Jerry. So I've been making little pillows, those little bench buddies. They're so cute. And I made a one of those little ornament eggs that you put in the little hoop things. So I got one more to do yet. So I thought maybe I'd do that tonight yet. So that's what I've been working on today. It's been a good day to stay in. It was just kind of icky. It wasn't really, I think it was a little icy this morning, wasn't it? So give people a few more minutes to get in here. So I think it was a little icy this morning, but no, I'm seeing the comments well. So hopefully, is everybody seeing my screen okay? Can you hear me all right? Is the sound okay? Hi Paula. Hi Barb. Hopefully you're able to hear me. Give me thumbs ups if you're hearing me okay. I'm using the mic, on my computer, so it's a little different maybe. You hearing me all right? Okay. It looked like it was good on when I can like test it before I start, and it looked like it was okay, but good. Yeah, I like the screen sharing works actually pretty well for this, and the only thing is then I cannot see anything that's going on Facebook because all I see is my screen. So I have to have something else. So I got my tablet out, and man, this is working great because the tablet actually, my new one, is really fast, so it's working out just fine. And I can set it on I've got like a little stand that I can set it on next to me, and it doesn't take up as much room. So it's going to work okay, I think. So we'll see how it goes tonight. Okay, so it's about 5 after. And so what we're going to do tonight, one of the gals from Davenport, I don't see Margaret, you're here now. So Margaret, a couple of months ago, asked me, Jan, can we learn to make patches? And I said, well, that'd be a good class. So this is what we're going to do. So Margaret, this class is for you. We're making patches tonight for you. And I thought it would be a good little project. Patches are really easy. And what they really are is just like an applique. So, but then we're going to sew them a little differently so that we can put them on a garment or on a hat or whatever you want to do. And I do make patches, regularly. But the one thing I did do is I had to experiment a little bit at the end. After I got the digitizing done, I had to experiment a little bit on sewing them. And I did have a little difficulty sewing them because I used to always sew them out on, you're welcome, Margaret. I always used to sew them out on like a twill fabric, which still works really well because it makes a nice, patch. But then I always used to sew them out on tearaway stabilizer. And we'll talk a little bit about this at the end too. But I did a little experimenting, and I actually found out that they sew much more beautifully along the edge. I like to have that nice satin stitch edge around the edge of my patch. And those work much better on the water soluble, like the Wet and Gone. Floriani calls it Wet and Gone, and Dime calls it, hi Kathy. Dime calls it sew and wash. So it's the water soluble, it's like the fabricy stuff that's water soluble. And oh my gosh, the edges are so much better. So at the end of the class, I'll just put a picture up of the patch. So you can see just the two patches. You can see the differences. I'll put them back up. But man, the tearaway is not near as beautiful as the washaway. So I did learn a couple things doing this. So it's been kind of fun. Hi, Judy. Okay. So, like I said, since we didn't get to do this in January, I actually was able to get some notes written for you. So there's some instructions, and then I wrote out and I typed it so you could read it. I wrote out the how to sew the patches out. So that's the file that I put up on the group, and then you can go download that. And then this little bobbin, when you see the little design, there's a little bobbin, like a little stack of bobbins. So I did this a long time ago. This must have been one of the very first classes I ever taught at Shield Sewing Center. We made some refrigerator magnets. And some of you may have been at that class because there's a few of you that have been coming in for a long time, and you may have been at the class. But I digitized those little bobbins for that, and I thought they were so cute. So I thought, let's pull those out. We're going to use that again, and we're going to make patches. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is when your software opens, so on my screen is my Perfect Embroidery Pro software. And just a second here, my tablet's dinging at me here. So when this opens up, the first thing that opens, of course, is my inspiration today. And you can't quite see the words. It's at the top left-hand corner. You can't see it on my screen because my computer's really small. So this comes up each time. And there's several things in here. And if you notice, like they usually have a little advertisement, of course. This is one of the Dime's new designs. Remember they had the kitty cat stipple one, and now they have dogs. So I thought that was really cool. And then on the right-hand side, here's where all the freebie designs are. So make sure you download those every month because these are really nice designs. And I've got them back to like 2009. So they have lots of really nice designs. Underneath there are a few things on here, like click here for software support and click here for the community and view all webinars. So there's different things here that you can get into. Excuse me. And I find they put everything together on the screen for you. And at the bottom, there's this little thing in front, so you're not going to be able to see all of them, but there's create a new design at the bottom, open a design, open a recent design. The one here is the manual at the end. So these are things that I open up. Let me see if I can move this over. I don't know if it'll let me. I apologize that my screen's so small. But we're going to use tonight create a new design, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to make a design. Okay. So I'm going to create a new design. Oh, hi, Marcia. So we're going to create a new design. And then that opens up our software. And if I leave this pulled up a little bit like this, then that little thing at the bottom won't get in the way. Okay. So here's our screen, and this is our software. Everything's woke up because we created a new design. Okay, so the next thing I want to do before I go any further is I like to be able to set up my like grid and my workspace to what I'm going to be doing. And it's nice because sometimes I need the grids for things, and I like to set everything up. So the first thing I'm going to do to do that, this is how you do it. You're going to go up to the top ruler bar, like where the numbers are, right above the design space. And you're just going to right click on that. And I want to make sure that my inches are selected because I work better in inches when I'm trying to see how big things are. I want to show my grid, okay? And I also want, so that there's a check mark next to that. And then I'm going to go into this little button called Grid Settings. And here I want to set up my workspace to what the sizes of my grid I want. And in this particular instance, I'd like to have 1-inch grid. So my horizontal, I would type in 1.0, and my vertical 1.0. Because if you do want them to be like rectangular, you can do that as well. Sometimes you may need to do that. I would like the style, which is right here, to show as solid lines so that I can see the grids. You can do them different ways. You can show them as dashed lines. You can show them as dots. There's different options. And then I think that's all I want here. I don't need snap to grid or anything like that. So I'm just going to choose that, and I'm going to click OK. And then there's a couple of things I want to check on my view menu, and my view and my tools menu. So like the view menu is up here on the left, and I want to view. And then I want to make sure that there's a check mark, and it's going to be grayed out right now because there's nothing on my design page, but I want to make sure there's a check mark here that where the start stop is, because that means it's going to help me. There's going to be a little icon that's going to show on the screen that will help me to know that I am that I can where my centers are. So that'll really help. And I like to make sure there's a check mark there. Okay, we'll be able to see it again. I'll show it to you again once we have something up on the screen, but I had already check marked mine. And then the other thing that's really hard for me, they've kind of gone in the software, and this has been a while, they started putting like icons over here for the design properties on the right. And I find it much faster for me just to read the words than to have to hover my mouse over every little picture to know what it does. So this is how you do that. So if you have like little icons over here in the properties box area, instead of words, this is how you change it, because I just read faster. So I'm going to go to Tools, and then I'm going to go down to General Options. And then there's little tabs across the top here, and I'm going to go to the word View and click on the little tab. And then I want to make sure that I deselect Show Property Tabs as Icons. So I deselect that so that there's no check in that box, and then I click OK. Because then when I have things up in my Properties box on the right here, it'll be a word instead of a little icon. And that just works better for me. Okay. Just a second. I think somebody's still trying to find me. I wonder if she's found me. My friend Claire is trying to find me, so I thought maybe I'd try texting her back. So I'm not sure if I can do it or not. She must be on the wrong group tonight. That's what's a little bit confusing is this one. This one is the software is on this group and the sewing is on the other. So it's a little confusing to people, I think. So, okay. So we've got our table or our design page all set up, and then we have checked, our tabs are going to be in words now, which is good. And now I'm ready to start my design. So to start the design, I want to create like the shape of my patch. And patches can be any shape you want. If you want them to be square, round, and they have some really nice artwork tools in this software so that you can create any kind of shapes you want. So I'm going to go up and get my artwork tool. The artwork tool, is my screen a little blurry? Sometimes, Denise, if you've got it like really big on a, if it's really big on a computer, it might be a little bit. So if you could make it a little smaller, it might be better. And also, usually the video is better sometimes than the actual live broadcast, just so you know. So if you need to go back and look at something again. Okay, so the artwork tool is right here, and it looks like a pencil and a square and a circle. It's kind of green and yellow, and there's a little arrow right next to it. So I want to click on the little arrow because I want a certain type of shape, and I liked this one that said rounded, and what it is, it's like a square with rounded corners, because that's the one that I wanted to that's the shape that I wanted, was a square with rounded corners. So I'm going to choose that one. And then I'm going to just draw a square on the workspace. If I hold down my control key while I'm doing this, it will be a perfect square. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to, you can see hopefully you'll be able to see on the screen soon, there's like a little plus sign that my cursor is now and a little square. What are the 4 icons on the far right side down the edge? Those are they've integrated some of the other softwares, Marcia, so that they like I have Word Art and Stitches and the Lace software and stuff like that. So they've integrated them so that those things on the right are access to the other programs. So I don't have to go directly to those programs. I can access everything from here. That's what it is now. They've changed that. That's something in the last maybe year or so. So, okay, so I've got my little square on my cursor, and I'm going to hold down my control key so that it makes a perfect square. And I'm just going to drag a square, it doesn't matter how big it is, and I'm just going to get a square on there, okay? Then I'm going to go up and get my selection tool. And you notice that now when I have this selected, and did you notice that all of a sudden I have this green and red thing in the middle? And what it does is it positions itself on the 0, 0 line, which is the center of your workspace. And I like to work with the center of my workspace because it helps me keep everything kind of organized the way I need it, okay? So I've got this selected, and I see the little square, the little X here. I'm going to move this to the center of my workspace because I know that green and red thing is there. And if you can't quite get it, like dragged and dropped there, if you hold down your control key and use the little arrow keys on your keyboard, you can nudge it a little bit. So I'm holding down my control key, and I'm just going to nudge this into place so it's right on the 0, 0 lines. Okay? So that works really well, and then everything's really organized where you want it. Okay. Now, remember we made these with the selected. If you go over, now we're going to go over to the properties box, which is that top right-hand box. And the top right-hand box, as I selected earlier, has words here. So my artwork is here. Then I have other options for my artwork. And what I'm looking for right now is transform. So it's the last one. And I want to maintain the aspect ratio. I want it to stay a square. So I'm going to leave that checked. And then I'm going to change the size of this square to 3.7 inches. And it's going to go up together, and it's going to stay a perfect square. So I'm going to go 3.7 inches. And then I'm going to click apply. And oh my gosh, look, everything disappeared. So what do we do now? And if you don't have the green and red thing, Marcia, after you get your square up there, if you go back up to view and make sure that there's a check mark next to the words start, stop, and then it will come on. Okay? I like that because it really helps. So after I hit apply and I made my square 3.7 inches, everything disappeared. Oh my gosh, what do you do? Well, you have to go up here to zoom because remember we just made it a lot bigger and my screen's quite small. So I'm going to go up here to the zoom, which is this where the number 200% is right now. I'm going to click on the little arrow and I'm going to go down to fit and click on to fit. And look, there's my square again. So it came back. So it fit it into the area with the current size. Okay. Now I noticed that mine somehow decided it was going to move a little bit when it got bigger. So my square is not quite centered on my work area anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and nudge this up just a little bit so that it's back centered. Okay, so I do have to do that sometimes. Sometimes when it resizes, it just decides it's not going to be where it's supposed to be. Okay, so now we've got our shape. This is the shape of the outside of our patch. And now I need to get this right now. Remember, we used an artwork tool. So if I look down here in the sequence view, which is down here on the right side, and I click open the little plus sign, see, it still says it's artwork. Artwork does not sew. So we need to make this into stitches so that it will sew, okay? So I'm going to I've got my selection tool and I'm going to left click on the outline. Then I'm going, at this point with it selected, because I have it selected, I'm going to right click on that same line. And I want to convert this, so I'm going to go down to convert to. And I want to make it an applique because that's what patches are appliques. Okay, so I'm going to go down to the applique, the word applique, and then my applique has become, you can see the satin stitches now. And see how easy it was to make it into stitches? It's so easy. So we have our applique now, but now, you know, we probably have some settings that we need to adjust for this particular applique. And again, in my properties box on the right-hand side, it says applique. That's what we're working in now. Instead of before it said artwork. So now it says applique. I would like it to be the type of applique. There's a bunch of different options. I want it to be, you know, use an E-stitch, a motif stitch, symbol, but I want it to be a satin stitch for my patch. So I'm going to leave it a satin stitch. I want the width of the satin stitch to be a little wider. It's a little bit too narrow for me. So I think I'm going to go up to 4 millimeters. So that's a little bit wider. You can always make them wider if you want, but I'm going to do 4. And then I want my stitch length, instead of 3.5, to be 2.5. And what that's doing is making your like placement and tack down lines have shorter stitches so that they don't come undone so easily. So I'm changing that stitch length to 2.5. And then I want to make sure for my patch, I need both a placement line and a tack down line. So I need both of those with check marks here. Okay. Now, if you were doing something that like maybe lettering, the next one, it says adjust holes. You know, sometimes lettering has an inside part and an outside, like a B or an R. So you might need to adjust the holes to make sure that everything is the satin stitch or the final stitching thing is the right way. Or if you're using a E stitch, those would then flip those E's over. So that's what that means. Okay, so I just need the placement line, the tack down line tonight. And then I'm going to go up here to where it says inset %. And I've learned with appliques, if I inset the default is that there's half of the satin stitch off the fabric and half of it on the fabric. But I found that they sew better and you get a better covering for your fabric if you sew more on the fabric than off. So with this particular patch, I chose 70%. So it's going to be 70% on the fabric and only 30% off the fabric. Okay. And I think everything else is okay where it is. So we'll just go ahead now and click apply. And you can see that it did change slightly my orientation and it pushed it in a little ways, and my satin stitch is now wider, so that after we hit apply, it did that. So now I also though need to change one other thing on this in the properties box. So I have reselected that. And I'm going to, whoops, second here. I just made it big, didn't I? Okay. I'm going to go back here to the commands tab, and there's different tabs up here. Like sometimes with the applique, it's fun. You can add a piece of fabric in there so you can kind of see the color of your applique. In this case, I know it was going to be kind of a cream color, so I'm okay with that. But the commands tab is something that you need to adjust settings on. And I often want to go in here and I want to tie in and tie off. I want to make sure that at the beginning and at the end of my lines or my satin stitches, that it ties off well and ties a knot so that I don't have anything that's going to come undone on me. So I want tie in to be basic and tie off to be basic. And then I'm going to click apply again. So that way my satin stitch is going to be well anchored and is not going to come unsewn. Okay? So is everybody following me all right so far? Is this making sense to everybody? We had a few more people come in, so that's awesome. Okay. If there's no questions, I'll keep going. Okay, so at this point, I want to bring in, oh, got thumbs up, so that's good. Keep going. Okay, everybody's going. Keep going. Okay. So at this point, I want to bring in part of that little design so that I can continue to make my patch. But if I would go in and click that little open button, you know, the open is the little file folder, or if I'd go to File, Open, what happens when you do that? Kim hopes she can figure it out in P Design. It is a little different in there, Kim, but if you call me, I can help you through it because there's actually an Applique Wizard in P Design, so it's actually even faster in there. So if I open a design, so when you hit open, my artwork box doesn't show size of box. Oh, you need to have it selected, Jackie. Make sure it's selected. Correct, Marcia. We'll have a new page. So if I would just click open, it would open a second page. But I need to get the design into what I've already started. Correct, Lynn. That's correct. So, and you can't have multiple pages open. So if you see at the bottom, it says design 1. So if I would click open and bring in the bobbins, then I would have 2 designs open at the same time. Okay. So I find that very useful at times because sometimes I need to have a couple designs open so I can see what I'm doing. Okay. So in this case, we need to go to File and Merge because we're going to bring that design in. Sorry, I got to get my merge. Go down to Merge, and that way it's going to bring that design into the one that we are working on. Okay. So make sure I got them in my right file here. Just a minute. Yeah, I was on my desktop. I gave you a little design, and I uploaded it. It's called Bobbins, and it's a C2S file, so you can open that up. So I'm just going to go to my Bobbins C2S, and I'm going to click open, and it's going to show up on my screen then. Now, as you can see, probably, it is rather large, so it needs to be made smaller so that it will fit in my patch. So I am going to go back to the properties box, and my bobbins are still selected. You can see the green. It's probably showing up green on my screen. That's my highlight color. And you can change that color, but I usually use that like grabby green so I can see what's selected. And I'm going to go up here to the properties box, and you may have to scroll. There's a little arrow at the end of it all the way to the right, and you may have to scroll all the way over until you get to transform. So I'm going to click transform. Again, I want to maintain my aspect ratio, so I'm going to leave that checked. And then I'm going to change the height because the width will also change at the same time. I'm going to change my height to 3.1 because I thought that looked like a good size for my bobbins, and then I'm going to click apply. Oh yes, that's much better. And then I'm just going to move my bobbins by clicking on them and kind of dragging them over towards the left-hand side of my patch, like that. Okay, so there is my bobbin. We brought the bobbins in, we resized them, and we've moved them to the left. So the next part of this is we're going to do a little text. Now we have done some text work before in here, so this is going to look similar to you. But before I start, I wanted to show you something else in here. Before I start, at the bottom here, there are a lot of boxes with colors all the way along the bottom here. And so there's a lot of colors in here right now, but we're not really using all of them. We're only using maybe about 10 of them. So let's get rid of some of the extras so that we can easily find the colors we want for our design. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here. If you see on the right at the very bottom, there's a little red like dash. That will remove all of the colors out of there that we are not using. So I find it very handy to do that because then it clears up and I can find what I want. So I'm just going to click the red dash, and now I've only got like 10 colors left. So now I can easily find everything. When I did this little bobbin stack, I did these all in brother colors. And so I'm actually going to sew this out. Terry, is this the free software? No, this is not. This is the full version of the software. But you do the sizing and everything, and you change the colors the same way in the free software so that you can do that with what you have. So what I just did, like the transforming, is done the same way in the free software. So everything's pretty much the same. You just don't have the tools we're working with. Okay, so I wanted to use Brother Colors, and I had digitized this some years ago in a C2S file, and I use Brother Colors. So if I hover my mouse down like over the little boxes at the bottom, they're all Brother Colors. So I had already set those. So I want to use those to do my lettering also, so I'll have all the same colors in it, and I won't have like a billion colors, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up and get my text tool, and we're going to start with the first group of letters. The text tool is the letter T, makes it easy. Then I'm going to choose a color. So before I do anything else, I can actually choose my color. I'm going to go down to the bottom, and I want the first letters to be the same color as the top bobbin, which I know is red. So I'm going to right click on number 2, which is my red. Oops, except my computer decided it was going to left click instead. So we're right clicking, there we go. Then I'm going to left click on the design area to set the letters. So if I do that, then I've got a letter that came up on my screen. And I have my properties box set up, and it says text. So now I'm in the text mode for my properties box. And I'm going to go up here. There's a little teeny box like on the top left corner of it, and that's where you type your letters. So my first letters I want to do are the words any, whoops, except I can't spell, any day. Let's try that again. There we go. Any day. I did a capital A and a capital D. And then I know what font that I chose a font that I liked. It's called Freehand. And to choose your fonts, this is sort of like a word processor. You go over here to the right, and there's a whole list of where the picture is of the font. Right below there are all the fonts. So I'm going to go up until I find, it's going to be up towards the top because they're in alphabetic order, and I want one that's called Freehand. So I'm just going to choose Freehand. Okay. And then I'm going to go choose height. The height here, I need it to be a little smaller. It came up rather large, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to highlight height, and I'm going to type in 0.4 inches for that, and then I'm going to click apply. Oh, that's much better. So now, if you can see on my screen, everything is kind of like squirted over to the left. So we need to go back to fit so we can get everything kind of organized so we can see it again. So I'll go up to the zoom area up here at the top, and I'll click on to fit. Kathy Quinn always used to say, to fit is our friend, because if you lose something, if you just go up and to fit, you can find it again. Okay. Then I'm going to I want my any day to be over in my patch, of course. And I've always had a little trouble with this. Right now, it is selected. You can see there's like boxes around it, but it's selected with the text tool. And I've always had a little trouble that, like, when I grab things in here, what happens is I usually grab, instead of the whole thing, like I got lucky that time, I usually end up grabbing like one letter, and I move one letter. So I usually, before I move it to where I want it, I'm going to hit my back arrow to put it back. I like to go up here to the left and get my selection tool so that any day is all selected as one piece, and it's much easier for me to move it, and I don't move like one letter way off on the side somewhere. So I'm going to grab now any day, and I'm just going to bring it up here towards the top. We may have to rearrange these a little bit later, but we'll do that. Okay, so there's any day, and that's done in the red. Okay. Now, we need to do the next set of letters, and I want it to say spent. The next word's going to be spent. So I'm going to go up here again to my text tool. I am going to right-click on the color I want it to be. I would like it to be blue. So the blue is number 3. So I'm going to right-click on number 3. And then I'm going to come up and I'm going to left click, on the screen, the design screen. And again, here's my properties box. I'm going to go up there and I want to type in the word spent. Oops. And then I would like it to be, again, freehand. And once you've chosen the font, it normally will stay there. So it's already there. I would like it, again, to be 0.4 inches. So I'm going to type in 0.4 inches in the height. And then I'm going to click apply. All right, there's the word spent. Again, I'm going to go over here and get my selection tool before I move it so that I don't have a problem with the moving. And here's spent. And then we're going to move it over here into our patch. Okay. Now, is this making sense? Has everybody done a little texting so in the software and done a little letters? So is this making kind of sense to everybody? Because we have a few more words to do. Okay. So I'm going to go back over here again and I'm going to get my text tool. So now we're going to do the third line. Again, I'm going to go down. This time I would like it to be pink. The color is going to be pink. So I would like to right click on number 4. The number 4 colors. Oh, everybody's sending me thumbs up. You must be doing okay. All right. Then I'm going to go up and I'm going to left click on the workspace. I'm going to go back over to my properties box where I can do my text, and I'm going to type in the word sewing. I did put a capital S on there. Again, I would like it to be freehand, and of course it still is. And I would like the height to be 0.40. And then I'm going to click apply again. Oops, so now we have this huge sewing and nothing else. Well, what do we need to do to find everything? We need to go back up to the zoom to fit so we can find what we're doing. So I had sewing over to the right, so it just zoomed into that. Again, I like to go get my selection tool so that I don't have trouble moving my word, and I'm going to move my word down here under spent. So any day spent sewing. Okay. I'm going to do another line. This time we're going to go back and again, we're going to go back and get our text tool. I am going to go down at the bottom and I would like this word to be in orange. It's tangerine is what they call it. So I'm going to right click on the tangerine. Then I'm going to go up and I'm going to left click on my design space. Again, up here in my properties box, I'm going to type in the little box here the words is and I didn't capitalize either one of those. And then I'm going to check to make sure my freehand is selected. That's what I want. Again, I want my height to be at 0.4 inches. And then I want to click apply. And there's my 2 little words is Okay. I'm going to go over and get my selection tool to move it. And I'm going to bring it down below sewing. We're getting closer. All right, so I do have to turn my page though, just a second here. All right. Then I'm going to go back and get my text tool again. We have some more letters to do. I'm going to go get the text tool. And this lettering I want to be in the lime green. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to right click on my number 6 box. I'm going to come up onto the screen and I'm going to left click on the design page. I'm going to go back to my properties box and I'm going to type in the word good. And then I'm going to change my height to, I'm going to check that it is freehand. That's what the first thing I wanted. And then the second thing, I would like it at 0.4 inches. And then I'm going to click apply again. All right, so there's the word good. I'm going to go get my selection tool. Going to pull this down to about where I want it. We're going to have to rearrange these probably a little. So, all right. And there's the word good. Now we have one more word, and the word day. So this one, we're going to go get our text tool. I want to go down to the bottom, and I'm going to right click on, this time I want the color purple. It's 614 or purple. I'm going to come up to my design page, and I'm going to left click to set my letter. Go back to my properties box and type the word day. Check that I have freehand selected, and then the height is 0.4 inches. And click apply. Then I'm going to go get my selection tool and grab the word day and pull it down. All right, so we'll probably need to do a little bit of arranging on our letters. They're a little bit scrunchied, so we'll probably do a little arranging here. So I'm going to go up and get any day. I think I'm actually going to pull any day up a little bit, so there's a little bit more space for the other letters underneath. And then just slide them around the way you want them. I don't know how exactly I did them, so I'm just gonna, whatever looks good tonight. I think I had spent over a little bit further like that maybe. And then looks good there. And I'm just clicking on them with my selection tool, and then I can pull them around. So we need to move these up just a little bit so day comes up a little bit. There we go. All right, whoops, there we go. How's that look? The day still needs to come down a little bit. How's that? All right, so any day spent sewing is a good day. I truly believe this. Now, it was funny because this saying, I've used this saying for a really long time because I did this those little magnet things long time ago, and they sent us a little thing that they wanted us to do for the All I Was Shop Hop, and this is the saying I used on that. So and no one else used it, so it was a saying that I've been using for a long time. So I thought it was cool. All right, so there's my patch, the general patch. But there's another thing that I use quite often in this software, and there's a way. So since we have like all these letters, let's look over here. So in the sequence view, which is at the bottom, I'm going to pull this up so you can see it better. If you look, I have like a whole bunch of, I have all the little bobbins, and I have all the spools at the top and the threads, but then I have all the letters at the bottom. But remember, we used all the same colors, right? And I like to be able to have less color changes, especially if I'm doing this on a home machine, so I don't have to sit there and change the thread 5 million times, okay? So they have this really cool way you can do this. There's a thing called Resequence by color in this software. So what I'm going to do is, it's up under the Edit menu. So we're going to go up to Edit, and then we're going to go to Resequence by color. And in this case, there's no problem doing that. Occasionally, I cannot do that with the design because I have to sew things in a certain order for them to sew correctly. But in this case, it would just save us a lot of time changing the colors. So I'm going to go down to Resequence by color, click on that. Now watch my sequence view. Look, there's only, so all the red is there's a red bobbin, and the words any day, they're together, so they'll sew together. And then there's the blue bobbin and the word spent, and the pink bobbin and the orange bobbin with their respective words. Okay, now there was one extra bobbin that I didn't use in the text. There was a yellow one, so that yellow bobbin, and then there's a silver, that's the little tops and the bottoms of the bobbins, and then there's like the black detail outlines. Okay, so all of those were resequenced. So now we only have what, about 10 colors? Yeah, 10 color changes. So that's so cool. Then we don't have to change the colors all those times, because it was about 20 before. So that's really cool. The other thing we want to do is we need to sew this in a slightly different order. And I know I have this question from a lot of people when they're doing appliques in PEP. When we open up, and we know the applique was that first outline that we did, right? So the first color then is the applique. And I want to look at that by clicking on in the sequence view here, you can click on the little X thing, and we're going to click on the little X. And underneath there, it just says applique. But most of us know that appliques have several parts. You know, they have a placement line, they have a tack down line, and then they have a cover or like the satin stitch, right? And we know that. Well, when you're looking at this now, I can't see part of those things. And often when I'm doing an applique, I need to move part of those around so that they sew in a certain order. Okay, so in order to do that, so I've got this open where I can see the word applique. I am going to right click on the word applique over there in the sequence view, and this menu is going to come up. And I want to break up the path, because then when I do this, I click break up path. Now I can see the run, which is going to be my placement line. The second run is going to be my tack down line for my fabric, right? And then the applique is going to be the satin stitch. So I can see all of the elements of that applique now, because I want to do my placement line first on my water-soluble stabilizer. We're going to use that Wet and Gone. And then I want to lay my fabric in, and then I want to tack it down to the stabilizer. But I do not want to trim it yet and do the applique. I want to do that at the end, because I'm not going to trim my fabric. I'm going to sew the whole thing out, and then I'm going to trim it at the very end and put the applique over the edge. So in order to do that, we also need then to move the applique stitches, because we don't want them to sew third. We want them to sew last. So I'm just going to grab the word applique out of there, and I'm going to pull it down to the end after the 900 black. I'm going to move it down to the very bottom. So now we're going to have our placement line and our tack down line, and then it's going to sew all the fun stuff in the middle of the patch, and then at the very end it's going to sew the satin stitches. We're going to trim, and then it's going to sew the satin stitches over the edge. Okay, so does everybody understand how I did that? And when you break up the path though on the appliques, then you can see the elements. Otherwise you don't see those. And then you have to, it breaks them up when you save it as a PES file. But if you need to move them, you can't see them unless you do it here in the C2S file. So that's the next thing we're going to talk about, is how you need to save this. Okay, so I want to save this as a working file, which is C2S in this program. And I also want to save it for my machine. All right, so I am going to save this first. So I'm going to go to File, Save As. And I'm going to save this as any day. And I'm going to leave it as the C2S file first. And I'm just going to put this on my desktop tonight. And you can save it anywhere you want. You just tell it where you want it to save. Mine's going to be on the desktop, and it's a C2S file, and I'm going to click Save. Okay, but then that C2S file does not read in our sewing machine. So we need to, oh, Jackie, make sure you pull it down, and you have to like drop it down on top of the last color. It's like you drop it like right on the last color. Because if you're trying to move it below the last color, it'll just keep popping back up. Hopefully that helps you. Okay, then I'm going to go back up to File, Save As, and I'm going to now leave it as the word any day, but then I'm going to choose the Save As type. I want to click on the little arrow, and I'm going to go up, and I want to save it as the Brother Baby Lock PES version 9. I'm going to use version 9, and then I'm going to save it on my desktop again. And that's the file that will sew in our machine. Okay, if you have another brand of machine, you can choose the file that you need. If you need a EXP or if you need a JEF, you can do that as well. Okay, so there is the patch. See how easy that was? So basically a patch is an applique. So you just have to make an applique. And then you can make them any size. You can put anything on it you want. You know, if you already have a design that you just want to make the patch shape, you can just bring the whole, you can merge, remember file merge, the whole design in, and then you have a patch and you can just sew it out. But I do want to tell you a little bit about the sewing part, okay? So, and if you give me a sec, I think you can see that pretty well. That's a pretty good picture of it. I have another picture, but that's basically the same. So hopefully you can see that okay. So let's talk through the sewing a little bit. Why do I want to do this, the applique last? Pat, what I usually do when I do these, I don't like to trim the fabric before I sew in the center of it, because when you sew in the center, all that stuff in the center, your fabric, if you trimmed it, could possibly pull away from your trimming stitches. So I usually leave all the fabric piece, you know, with the tack down line, everything seems a little more stable that way, and then I trim at the end and do the satin stitch. I think everything stays together a little better. That was a very good question. Okay. So when I sew these, this is always a lot of questions I get, and I wrote this all out in the instructions for you also. I use either Wet and Gone or Sew and Wash Stabilizer. That's the stuff you make lace on. Okay. And I used to use Tearaway, but I've started using this, and this works so much better. The edges are so much cleaner. And I'll take a close-up picture of my two patches so you can see the difference. Okay. You're gonna put that in your hoop. You only need one layer. You could put two if you wanted, but I usually just put one. And I cut a piece of twill fabric. I got some twill at, I think I got it at Hobby Lobby. That seems to make good patches. It's a little stiffer fabric, and it's not as, it's fairly dense fabric. And then I also then take a piece of medium cutaway fusible, and I fuse that on the back of the twill fabric. So I do use another stabilizer. It's that heavy cutaway, but it's a fusible. Okay, so I want my patch to turn out nice and stiff at the end. All right, put that. So I'm going to hoop my Wet and Gone in the hoop, and I'm going to sew my placement line, which is step number 1, onto just the stabilizer. And then I'm going to lay my fabric down, the fabric with the cutaway ironed on the back, down in the hoop. And then I'm going to sew the tack down, which is step number 2. But I am not going to trim at that time. Okay, don't trim your fabric, just leave it in there. And then go ahead and finish sewing the rest of the inside of the patch. So like, you know, my any day spent sewing is a good day, all the little bobbins, and then it does all the silver detail, and then the black. All right. After it does all the little detail, then I'm going to trim my fabric close to the stitches around the edge of my patch. And I'm also, on my patch edges, I always like to have matching bobbin thread. So I changed my patch edges, and on my patches I use blue. I used the blue that was in the second letters and the second bobbin to go around the edge. And so I put matching bobbin thread, you know, the embroidery thread in the bobbin, so that my, it's just a little thicker, you know, the embroidery thread's a little thicker than bobbin thread, and it just makes the edge a little bit more sturdy. Okay. And then I go ahead and I stitch that out. And at the end, I take it out of the hoop, and then I'm going to trim maybe about 1/8 of an inch. This is that water soluble again. I'm going to trim around the patch and leave about 1/8 of an inch or so. I'm going to go over to the sink and I'm going to wet my finger and I'm just going to paint the edge and paint off the rest of that water soluble. I don't take it off the back of it because if the patch gets washed, you know, like on a piece of clothing, it's going to come out the back of it. So I just do the edge. Okay. And all of my patches, honestly, I sew them on. I find they stay on better than I've tried some of those bonding agents, and some of them work well and some don't. I actually just sew mine on. I think it's the best way to do it. I just use matching thread of my satin stitch and I just sew it on around the edge through my satin stitch. Okay, so that's how I sew it. I've got all of those instructions also in the file that I uploaded, and I've got the little bobbins for you. And that's a patch. So what do you think? Can you go and make patches now? Is everybody still awake? There's a lot of you here. There's 30 people here, my goodness. So this is really fun. This is simple digitizing. It's very fun to do in the software. Are you seeing that the software is pretty user-friendly? Do you think you can do you think you can all make patches now? Make appliques at least? And this is the same way we're going to do all the appliques. Yep, we're getting some thumbs ups. You hope so. Kim says, I hope so. But applique is really fun, and I think patches are fun to do. What makes it a patch, though, is kind of how you sew it. So that's why I wrote that all out, too, so you know how I sew them. All right. I really enjoy doing digitizing like this in here. These were really simple things. You know, doing lettering is so easy. And I had already digitized that little bobbins thing. So, okay. So I think that's it for tonight. Are there any more questions? Did anybody else have any other questions? Now, next month, in March, it's on the 1st, I think. Isn't it the 1st of March that we're going to have software class? Let me look. Yep. That's going to be that cute little USB bag that I uploaded the picture of, and that's an In the Hoop project. So I'm going to show you how to digitize from scratch an In the Hoop project. We're going to put on like a zipper in it and little pockets and everything. So what is this? Is the purpose of the dime package for patches? So when they sew their little package, Lynn, yes, the kit. You guys are asking about the kits. They sew theirs on that water soluble. That's that stiffer stuff. It's like Badge Master, and that works okay. But I find it a little stiff, and then my edges aren't as pretty. I like the other stuff, the stuff I make lace on. That's like the fabric. And then they have the double-sided fusible stuff in there also. And that stuff does work. I have had a little problems with it. I haven't used the dime one, I have to admit. I've used the Floriani one, and I don't always have good results with the Floriani. That's why I have a tendency to sew my patches on. But what it's used for then, like that dime pack, is that you would take the double-sided tacky stuff and you would put it on the back of your patch, and then you'd iron the patch to the garment or whatever, not sew it on, if that makes sense. But I don't care for that stiff water-soluble stuff. It's so stiff and it doesn't make the edges pretty. So I don't use that usually. This patch is also freestanding, Lynn, because remember I used a water soluble. But what they do for their water soluble, instead of the fabric-y stuff like the Wet and Gone or the Sew and Wash, they're using that heavy plastic stuff that's like Badge Master is what they're using, and that's what is in their kit. Okay, so it is a water soluble, but it's the stiff stuff. It's the plastic looking stuff. And it works. I've just had more, my machines have not always liked that stuff as well. But you can still use the double-sided stuff to do the anchoring then to your garment. Okay. So now I expect to see people making patches and put them up on the group. I'd like to see if you do this one, put it up so I can see the colors you chose. Does that make sense, Lynn? I hope that made sense. it's the same stuff. It's just, you know, the one is the double-sided stuff, but the other is that Badge Master like water soluble. Okay. All right. So the next time we'll do that cute little USB bag, and we'll digitize it. So we'll use the drawing tools and some stuff like that. That is a class that I got from Floriani, and Kathy Quinn did it years ago. And I've always loved that little bag, but there was a couple things that I always wanted to do to change it. I wanted to make it a little bit bigger because the USBs didn't fit in it very well. So I did make it bigger, and I redid all the notes and made everything larger and changed all the dimensions. So that's what I did. And then we're actually going to sew that then. That's going to be the free design that everybody will get in. That will be the free design that we'll use for Explore Club in March. So then we'll actually sew it out so you can see how to sew it. And then I'll have two versions of it. We'll have one version that we do in this class, and we'll have one version that we do in Explore Club, because I did a different front for the Explore Club. Okay, so we'll have two versions of it. I think it'll be fun. All right. Thanks, everybody. So if you have any other questions, just you know, text me or whatever. And I think we're done for the night. So thank you so much for joining me on your Sunday evening. And I will put up the pictures of my two patches so you can see the difference in my edges from the tearaway to the water soluble. So, all right. Thank you, everybody. Good night.